CFL and NFL legends never die, they just fade away, and news came across the doorstep today about one of the most important head coaches in NFL history and CFL history and world history, probably up there with Don Shula, Tom Landry, Belichick, all the great ones in the NFL and CFL. Bud Grant. Now, Harry Peter Bud Grant was an American football defensive end and head coach, and a player in the NBA as well because he was a three-sport athlete. He is best known for serving as the head coach of the Vikings for 18 seasons after a successful tenure in the CFL where he won several Grey Cups. He was the Giants' second and fourth overall head coach, leading them to 4 Super Bowl appearances, 11 division titles, 1 league title, and 3 NFC championships. Now, he attended the University of Minnesota, was again a three-sport athlete in football, basketball, and baseball. After college, he played for the Lakers of the NBA in Minneapolis, the Philly Eagles of the NFL, and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers of the CFL. Now, a grand statue of Grant stands in front of Winnipeg Blue Bombers' current stadium, IG Field, now with the Lakers, who won the 1950 NBA title. So get this, CFL Grey Cup champion, NBA champion, and almost Super Bowl champion. Now, before coaching the Vikings, again, he was a head coach of the Blue Bombers, the CFL for 10 seasons, winning the Grey Cup 4 times, and it's called what they call the dynasty years of the Blue Bombers. He's also the most successful coach in Vikings history, and the 5th most successful pro football coach overall, with a combined 286 wins in the NFL and CFL. He is the first player, the coach, to be inducted into the CFL and to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now, he was the first coach to guide teams to the Grey Cup and the Super Bowl, the other being, of course, the great Marv Levy, who was with the Alouettes head coach for several years before going on to Kansas City and then the Bills. Now, born in Superior, Wisconsin to Harry Peter Sr. and Bernice Grant, his mother called him Buddy Boy, which later became Bud. As a child, he was diagnosed with poliomyelitis, and a doctor suggested he become active in sports to strengthen his weakened leg muscles. Grew into a big, tall drink of water, 6'3", 199 pounds. A round 1 pick in the NFL draft, of course, in 1950 by Minnesota. Now, due to his lack of organized school teams, he arranged football games between neighborhoods and contacted kids from other schools to take part. During weekends, he spent time outdoors alone hunting rabbits. In his late teens and college years, he played organized baseball in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now, he played football, basketball, and baseball at Superior and graduated in 1945 and enlisted in the U.S. Navy. He eventually was assigned to the Great Lakes Naval Training Station in Illinois and played in the football team coached by, get this, Paul Brown. Using an acceptance letter from University of Wisconsin-Madison to be discharged from the service, he decided to attend the University of Minnesota instead. He was a three-sport, 9-letterman athlete in football, basketball, and baseball for the Minnesota Golden Gophers, earning all Big Ten Conference honors in football twice. While at Minnesota, he was a member of the Phi Delta Theta fraternity. Now, after leaving Minnesota, Grant was selected to both the NFL and NBA draft. First round, 14 overall, 50 by the Eagles, and fourth round, 47 overall by the Lakers in the 50 NBA draft. He played 35 games for the Lakers that 1950 season and signed with the Lakers for the 51 campaign. He chose to continue his basketball career with the Lakers because they were local and because he was offered a raise to stay for the season. Grant's close friend Sid Hartman was a Lakers GM, which may have influenced the decision to remain with the squad. He averaged 2.6 points per game in his 2 seasons as a reserve with the Lakers, and again was a member of the 50 title team. After the death of Arnie Fernan in 2022, he became the oldest living NBA champion. Now, after 2 seasons, the NBA decided to end pro basketball to play football. He contacted the Eagles of the NFL and agreed to play for the team during the 51 campaign. In his first season with the Eagles, he played defensive end and led the team in sacks. He switched to offense as wide receiver for his second season with the club and ranked second in the NFL for receiving yardage, 997 yards on 6 catches, including 7 touchdowns. Now, when his contract expired at the end of the 52 season, and the Eagles refused to pay him what he thought he was worth, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers stepped in, and as he had been interested in Grant while in college. He left for Winnipeg in 1953 and became the first pro player to play out his option and leave for another team. He played for the Bombers until 1956 as an offensive end and was named a Western Conference All-Star 3 times. He led the conference in pass receptions for 53, 54, and 56, and receiving yards for 53 and 56. He also holds the distinction of having made 5 interceptions in a playoff game played on October 28, 53, which is a record in all of professional football. The Blue Bombers played for the Grey Cup in 53, but lost to Hamilton Tiger Cats in the 41st Grey Cup game. Now get this, that wasn't his last shot at a Grey Cup title. Now, Blue Bombers management decided they needed a coach prior to the 52 season. On January 30, 57, he accepted a head coaching position after impressing management with his ability to make adjustments on offense and defense as a player. Club president J.T. Russell thought that Grant could coach even though nobody else did. He remained the head coach of the Blue Bombers until 66. At age 29, he was 30 by the time he coached his first game. He became the youngest head coach in CFL history, and the legend not only was born, it continued. Now, during his 10 campaigns as head coach in Winnipeg, he led the team to 6 Grey Cup appearances, winning the title 58, 59, 61, 62. He finished his Blue Bombers coaching career with a regular season record of 105, 53, and 2, and an overall record of 122, 66, and 3 times. Grant was the CFL Coach of the Year in 65. He also took additional responsibilities as club manager between 64 and 66. But Max Winter, the Minnesota Vikings founder, contacted Grant in 61 and asked him to coach the new NFL expansion team. He declined the offer and remained in Winnipeg until 67, when Winter and GM Jim Finks were successful in luring Grant to Minnesota. Now, with the Vikings, March 10, 67, he took over from original coach Norm Van Brocklin. Over his tenure as Vikings head coach, he was known for instilling discipline in his teams and displaying a lack of emotion during games. He believed that football is a game of controlled emotion, and teams would not allow follow the coach's lead were to panic or lose his poise during the course of the game. Now, I grew up watching Shula, Grant, Landry, Chuck Noll. He was not say a taskmaster, but there was no shit with this guy. Paul Brown was a thinking man's coach. But Bud Grant, he knew how to win. He couldn't describe how to win. He would never be braggadocious, by the way. He never said, we're going to beat you or this and that. I don't think journalists at the time could get more than 2 lines from him saying, we're playing on Sunday, watch us play. Now, he required his team, get this, to stand at attention in a straight line during the entire national anthem played before the game, and even had a national anthem practice. Grant required outdoor practice during the winter to get his players used to cold weather, and it worked in Minnesota. Jim Marshall said that. He did not allow heaters on the sidelines during games. As per the latter practice, his goal was that Grant positioned that when the heaters were present on the sidelines, the players would gather around the source of the warmth, but if the heaters were not present, the players would be paying attention to the game. And besides the 75 Hail Mary, it never failed. Now, Grant and Finks orchestrated a rare, although unofficial trade between leagues, which brought, get this, Indian Joe Cap from the Lions to the Vikings. Cap, of course, a big CFL star. In return, the Vikings sent Jim Young, a Canadian-born player, back to his native country. Officially, both players were waived out of respective leagues and signed with the new teams as free agents. But effectively, it was a strange exchange, never been done before or since. Now, in the second year, Grant led the team to the divisional title in his first NFL playoffs appearance. In 69, he led the team to his first NFL title and their first appearance in the Super Bowl. The Vikings lost in Super Bowl IV to the Chiefs, but prior to the 70 season, Minnesota released Joe Cap, who had led them to the title match. Now, after starting Gary Kuzo at quarterback in 1771, ineffective of course, the Vikings reacquired Tarkin from the Giants prior to the 72 campaign. Now, during the 70s, the Vikings appeared in 3 more Super Bowls and under Grant and lost each one, despite big victories over the Rams and Dallas on the NFC side. He was the first coach to lead a team before Super Bowl appearances, and of course the first coach to lose all 4. He retired after the 83 season and was succeeded by Les Steckel, who led the team to a 3-13 record the following year. However, Steckel was fired as head coach after the 84 season, and Grant returned as coach for the Vikes in 85. After one season, when he returned to the club to a 7-9 record, he stepped down again. He retired as the 8th most successful coach in NFL history, with an overall record of 161, 99, and 5. As of this campaign, he also remains the most successful coach in Vikings history. During his tenure with the Vikes, he led them again to 4 Super Bowls, 11 division titles, 1 league title, and 3 NFC championships. Now, the NFL regular season, again, 52 was his big year, 56 receptions, nearly 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. Now, let's go over quickly the head coaching record for Winnipeg. Now, at the time, they were playing a 16-game season. He won 4 out of 5 titles, but only Edmonton stopped him. It could have been 5 out of 6, but he lost to the Ticats in 1957. So get this, ladies and gentlemen. 12-4, 13-3, 12-4, 14-2, 13-3, 11-5, 7-9. Don't know what happened. 64, 1-14, and then lost in the Grey Cup to Hamilton in 65 with 11-5 record, and then lost in the conference finals. Now, Minnesota first year 3-8-3, then 8-6, 12-2, 12-2, 11-3, 7-7, 12-2, 10-4, 12-2, 11-2, 9-5, 8-7. Losing record in 79, 9-7, 7-9, then 5-4, 8-8, and 7-9. Now, lost to the Colts, lost to the Chiefs, the 49ers, Dallas, lost to the Dolphins, Steelers, Cowboys again, Raiders, lost to the Cowboys again, then to the Rams. So sometimes you beat the Rams and Cowboys, sometimes they wouldn't. Now, after retiring, he became a less prominent public figure and focused on 2 loves, hunting and fishing, and supporting environmental reforms. He was a spokesperson against Native American hunting and fishing treaty rights in Minnesota, which drew a lot of controversy, as in 1993, his efforts resulted in death threats. In 2005, he spoke at a Capitol rally in Minnesota for the conservation of wetlands, wetland wildlife, and water. Grant addressed 5,000 supporters, saying, "In this alleged session, we want to see some action. It's more important than any stadium you could ever build in the state." In 94, Grant would be inducted in the NFL Hall of Fame by Sid Hartman, who was by then a senior Minnesota sports columnist. Until his death, Grant was still listed as a consultant for the Vikings and maintained an office at the team's headquarters at the TCO Performance Center in Eagan, Minnesota. Now, in 2014, the Blue Bombers unveiled a statue of Coach Grant outside IG Field, and again made the Ring of Honor for the Blue Bombers in 2016. Now, Bud married Pat, former Patricia Nelson, born March 28, 27 in 1950, and the couple had 6 children. Unfortunately, she passed away from brain cancer in 2018. Now, her son Mike Grant started coaching in 75 in Minnetonka High School, then became the Forest Lake head coach from 81-86 and 86-89-91. Mike has been the football head coach for Eden Prairie High School in Eden Prairie, Minnesota since 92. Mike Grant has coached Eden Prairie to 11 state titles since he began his tenure at the school. Now, Bud Grant's grandson, Ryan Grant, was a quarterback and linebacker at Eden Prairie and played at the University of Minnesota as an LB. Bud's granddaughter, Jenny, is also married to former NFL quarterback Gibrahim Dan. Now, Pat Grant died of Parkinson's disease at the age of 81 in 2009. Their son, Bruce, passed away from brain cancer. My apologies. But Pat Grant, his wife, died of Parkinson's 2009. Now, according to published reports, Bud Grant died in his home in Bloomington on March 11th, 2023, at the age of 95. Now, as of 2020, 7 of Grant's assistants have become head coaches, and 1 has won the Super Bowl, including Pete Carroll, Mark Trestman, Jerry Burns, Les Steckel, Neil Armstrong, double L of course, Jack Patera, and Bud Holloway. Now, according to CBC, Bud's passing, it was very beautiful tribute. The Vikings, it stated, we're absolutely devastated to announce Bud has passed away this morning, age 95. We, like all Vikings and NFL fans, are shocked by and saddened by his terrible news. Now, wearing his trademark purple Vikings cap and a stone-faced demeanor, Grant's steely sideline gaze became synonymous with his squads. He was a mainstay among coaches of his era, a decorated group, and I must say the best coaches of all time. Shula, Landry, Noel, John Madden, Hank Stram. Grant, however, had little interest in accolades. The only reason I can see for a head coach getting credit for something good is that he gets so much blame when something is bad. The whole secret, I think, is not to react to either the good or the bad. Now, He's the one that assembled, of course, the Purple People Eaters. When he was lured back across the board in '67, he brought in Fran Tarkenton, Carl Eller, Alan Page, Paul Krause, and Ron Very, all Pro Football Hall of Famers. Now, again, Central Division titles, 10 crowns, 11 seasons. Now, the motto he used for the Purple People Eaters, we used to use in college and high school play, was meet me at the quarterback. They were also joined by a powerful offensive line that included many top players from the collegiate ranks throughout the years. Now, it's best not to talk about the fact why they lost in the Super Bowls, or just they're outscored, and the defense was winning them games could not work against a team with a consistent defense and a better offense. Now, the idea about Bud Grant, he became larger than life. There's no podcast and there's no story can cover all the bases of what Bud Grant meant to the CFL, especially the CFL West Division. When I was growing up, I think it was 6 or 7, my dad would tell me a story about Bud Grant, because it was kind of bizarre, because at the time the CFL in the 1960s was just as good or better than certain NFL teams, and Bud Grant had coached so much in the CFL, and he brought a CFL type aesthetic to the Vikings, and we consider the Minnesota Vikings the best CFL team of the decade, even though they were playing in the NFL. So to Bud Grant's family, all his colleagues, all the Viking faithful, all the Blue Bomber faithful, the NFL and CFL fans, we're sorry for your loss. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're doing here with our podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share, or super chat. And don't forget, requests are always accepted and always highly considered. Thanks for listening. Bye.